The views expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Sauga 960 AM or its management.
Live from Toronto to the world.
Josh!
This is Josh Holiday Live. Talk that rocks.
The public needs to be informed.
Josh might surprise us.
Got an opinion? Dial 647-6YO-JOSH.
When you hear him, you're like, what?
Josh Holiday Live starts now.
Good day. I'm not Australian, but I can say good day. It is Josh Holiday Live for November the 5th. It's a Friday. Going to talk to Dr. Alison Kelvin. She's featured in a new documentary called Inside the Great Vaccine Race, airing tonight on CBC at 9 p.m., part of The Nature of Things. We'll get to that in just a bit. But first, have to talk about Dougie Ford, continuing to fail us in pretty much every way as a province. This week, a couple of things came out of the Ford administration. He said he's going ahead with 2 highways on the outskirts of the city, trying to appease his developer friends. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere, because I would eat my shoe with ketchup if he gets reelected this summer. But he's trying to move forward 2 different highways, and I think it'll get shut down by anyone else. After being in office for a number of years and not doing anything about the minimum wage and resisting raising it for a couple of years, all of a sudden, not very long out from election, he decides, you know what, I'm going to make that minimum wage $15, which is still low when you consider that in the States, in American dollars, they want to make the minimum wage $15, which is closer to $20 in Canadian. And finally, Ford backed down on vaccine mandates for healthcare workers. So stupid. All of the healthcare workers, all of the scientists, pretty much anyone who's an expert in the medical and scientific field has called for mandates in healthcare facilities. And Ford is I don't know who he's pandering to now. Most of the population wants there to be mandates for hospital and healthcare workers. You have to be vaccinated to go to a sit down in a fast food restaurant, a Burger King. But if you're caring for immunocompromised cancer patients, you don't have to have a vaccine. So stupid. So stupid. I don't get it, but I guess he's flailing, and I at this point you can't really expect him to do anything good. His history of doing smart things is very, 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 very small. And it doesn't help that his daughter is a virulent anti-vaxxer, Krista Ford. She posts on her Instagram, and she's a so-called influencer. And I can't help but thinking that she is having a bit of control over Daddy's decisions. She's they're close. It's a family of dum-dums. Doug Ford and his daughter, Dumb and Dumber. She's posted a lot of anti-vax stuff, and she recently posted a message about veterans and wearing masks. And I have the audio for you so you can have a listen to that.
Good morning, Instagram. Happy Monday. It's time to start wearing your poppy in show of support of those who fought and died for our freedoms that we seem to be so gladly giving up today. So if you're headed into a store today and you find it more important to put on a mask than a poppy, rethink your priorities, because there have been men and women who have fought bravely and died for our freedoms that we seem to be just handing over today. So please think about that. Grab a poppy, wear a poppy, support your local Legion, and support our veterans.
Yes, support the veterans of the local Legion, but don't listen to anything Krista Ford says. The irony here is, and don't expect her to know any history. I expect her to know what a good purse is, or what the greatest supplement is for working out. Before World War II, soldiers died more often of disease than actual battle injuries. The ratio of disease to battle casualties was about 5-1 in the Spanish-American War and 2-1 in the Civil War. During the outbreak, the flu accounted for roughly half of U.S. military casualties in Europe. That was from the World War I, the influenza epidemic. As the war raged on in Europe, the U.S. military recognized that infectious disease was as big an enemy as they'd meet on the battlefield, so they partnered up with industry and academics to develop vaccines for the troops. Vaccines were important to the military for the simple reason that they reduced the overall sick days for troops more than any other therapeutic measure. This partnership generated unprecedented levels of innovation that lasted long after the war was over. So the vaccines that you're so adamant against are what caused less amount of casities for these veterans that you think you have some respect for. So not the brightest. And we're also seeing some real-time Darwinism in effect. There's a guy from Vancouver, Mac Harhar. He not only was he anti-vax, he believes the earth is flat. So, that's the type, the anti-vax type. Earlier this week, he reported feeling ill with a variety of symptoms, which he said was not COVID, because COVID doesn't exist. So can't even get the name of the virus right. He's also in the middle of trials on charges of violating the Quarantine Act for not self-isolating, and his license for his hot yoga studio has been revoked, and he also shot video inside a Vancouver hospital at the height of the pandemic, trying to expose the, quote, truth about the virus. Well, he died this week. So it used to be Darwinism would take hundreds of years. You'd see slow adaptation, survival of the fittest, but now we're seeing it in a matter of months. The dum-dums are dying very, very quickly. So we are going to come back and talk about this new documentary on the race to find a vaccine in just a moment. Stand by.
Introducing a new P73 Oregano Gummy. Oregao's Gummies from North American Herb & Spice. North American Herb & Spice is the first to introduce a clean gummy infused with P73 oregano oil, a spice oil known for its immune-supporting benefits. It took over 2 years to develop and contains no refined sugars, tapioca syrup, or natural flavors, yet tastes delicious. Made with the only oregano oil for daily use, P73 Oregao's combines black seed oil and Peruvian yacon root syrup, a zero-glycemic sweetener that acts as a natural prebiotic. Every hand-picked harvest is triple-tested for purity and authenticity. These delicious gummies are perfect for daily use. Order online at oregano.com. OREGANOL. 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 P73 Oregano Gummies from North American Herb & Spice. Order yours today at oregano.com.
In almost 3 decades, we have grown from a mere door-to-door flyer distribution company to a full-service advertising agency. Advertising in print media, radio, TV, digital marketing, etc. Whether you are starting a new venture or you are already in business, we can help you save hundreds or even thousands of dollars in advertising. Don't waste your time and money by using hit and trial methods in advertising. Give us a call. Prime Distribution Network Incorporated, 905-330-4071. That's 905-330-4071. Let's work together for growth.
The roof over your head protects your home and everything in it. When it's time for repairs or replacement, choose right. Choose better. With over 40 years experience, Better Contracting Services is the GTA's roofing and gutter specialists. Residential or commercial, we do it all, from repairs to replacement. Better Contracting Services are the pros officially endorsed by Mike Holmes. See why when you choose better. Visit bettercontracting.ca for a roof done right. The other guys are good. We're better.
No radio? No problem. Stream us live on Sauga960am.ca.
Josh Holiday Live is in your ear. You got something to say? Call 647-6YO-JOSH now.
For those who have been following Josh, Josh is available
on Twitter at Josh Holiday and visit JoshHolidayLive.com.
It was the challenge of a lifetime. As the coronavirus raged around the world, scientists mobilized to fight back with a vaccine.
So the gloves are off and the race is on.
In Canada, Dr. Alison Calvin will leave her family to work on a vaccine. She won't see them for 5 months.
Despite the sacrifices, I would have felt useless being at home.
In Germany, Professor Ugur Shahin and his wife, Dr. Özlem Teresi, run BioNTech. Within a year, the whole world will know that name. In China, Dr. Xu Fenwu is backed by the military. In just 50 days, his company will be winning the race. And in the UK, Dr. Jonathan Heaney is chasing the Holy Grail, a vaccine that protects against multiple coronaviruses.
Why wait again for another disaster?
Hundreds of teams join the battle, but to defeat the coronavirus, more than just one must succeed.
We have to provide almost 10 billion doses.
Never in history has so much vaccine been needed so urgently. Enough for everyone on the planet.
That was unprecedented.
From the streets of Brazil to the bat caves of Thailand. From the biohazard labs of China to the high-security vaccine facilities of Germany. The inside story of the race to save everyone on Earth.
That is audio and the trailer for a new documentary airing tonight on CBC at 9 p.m. on the nature of things. It's called Inside the Great Vaccine Race. And one of the voices you heard there and one of the people featured on the documentary, which is all about following a couple of different teams as they go through the developments, the trial and error of trying to get a vaccine, racing against the spread of COVID. And on the phone with me now is one of the doctors featured, is Dr. Alison Calvin, who is in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan right now. And what are you currently doing? What's your current title?
Right. So thanks for having me. I'm currently a scientist at VITO, and VITO is the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, which is part of the University of Saskatchewan. So if you want to know what VITO is, basically it's, for me, being an infectious disease researcher, it is one of the greatest facilities that has been ever produced, where they have decades of expertise in developing vaccines, but then they also have this capability of working with higher containment viruses, like SARS-CoV-2, which is rated on a scale of 1 to 4, it's rated a 3. So almost the most deadly. They have the infrastructure in the buildings where we can work on these types of viruses.
And that was one thing that when I was watching it, I was sort of like, oh boy. Just watching you get dressed in the protective gear and knowing that there's a deadly virus there. What, for me, I kind of look at it with anxiety, but for you, working with something that's so deadly in such close quarters, what's your anxiety level?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So I've been working with viruses that cause significant amounts of disease for about 15 years now. So I have the background and knowledge of how to work with these viruses safely. And the research program that I had developed at Dalhousie University before coming here was very similar to how VITO is structured, working with viruses that infect people and cause similar types of disease. So I had all that background. What was different at VITO is that they have rooms that are specially designed to deal with the virus, but my behavior is the same. So my anxiety level with my training is quite low, knowing that I'm quite protected in that big spacesuit. I'm getting filtered air into me. As long as I follow the rules, I'm safe. So actually, I felt a lot safer being in the lab than I did out in the community where people weren't following the rules. The virus was, going wild, infecting people person to person. So I have a lot of decreased anxiety being in the lab where everything is quite controlled.
Well, that makes sense. So initially, you mentioned Dalhousie in Halifax. At what point did you become aware of the severity of the COVID virus, the COVID-19?
Yeah, and that's such an interesting question. So I just opened up my own research lab at Dal. I'd been studying respiratory viruses and viruses that would be likely to cause a pandemic for about 12 years before that. And in 2017-18, I opened my own lab. And so I had just really gotten into the swing of things at Dal, and we were coming to, it was the end of Christmas break, the end of 2019, the last day of December 30th. I was having a glass of wine, kind of relaxing, going off to bed, and I checked my email one last time. And at the top of my inbox was an email from this, what I call a social network for infectious disease geeks like myself. So anytime there's an outbreak of an infectious disease around the world, we get notified through this email system. It's called ProMed Mail. Anyone who's interested can go and actually sign up for this. So anyway, I get this email saying that there's an outbreak of undiagnosed pneumonia in Wuhan, China. And after studying respiratory viruses, I actually studied SARS-1. During the 2003 outbreak in Toronto, I've done lots of high-path flu, so avian influenza, as well as studying the H1N1 pandemic. This immediately popped out to me. There was about 30 cases of people that had been hospitalized because of this virus causing pneumonia. So I had a couple of thoughts. One was that this virus had spilled over from an animal reservoir and caused complete severe disease in people, anybody who's infected, leading them to be hospitalized. Or what we were seeing, this hospitalization of these 30 people, was really like the tip of the iceberg. We know in regular seasonal influenza that, some people become hospitalized and unfortunately die of flu, whereas others might have a mild disease and almost be able to walk around. So I thought it could be that scenario too, and it could be a lot larger than what we know of. So I immediately was concerned about this, considering it was 30 people, and I sent the email to my father, who also works in infectious disease and has a lab in China. I wanted to know if he had any insight into this outbreak, and that's where things really started to happen for me.
So how does the call come from the lab in Saskatoon? It almost feels like a virus version of the Avengers, calling everyone to come to Saskatoon and work on this vaccine.
Right. So because of being in this type of work for so long, I knew of Vito, and I knew that they had a world-class institute that could not only handle the type of preclinical evaluation that we needed if we wanted to create a vaccine. They, again, as I mentioned earlier, had this facility to deal with the containment of a highly pathogenic virus. So I called Vito the first week of January to see if I could come set up a small, at this time I was thinking a small little project there, and were they able to accommodate me, because my research program at Dell only went to human influenza viruses. So if we were looking at that level 1 to 4, this was a level 2 plus that I had at Dell. Whereas I knew that we would need a level 3, which Vito has, to work on this virus. So when I contacted them, they said, sure, and we started to get plans in place for me to come there, and which eventually the the end of February, I was able to come with a kind of a skeleton crew. My PhD student, Maggie Francis, and a research technician in my lab at the time came to Saskatoon thinking we would stay here for 3 weeks to get this project up and going. But of course, things drastically changed from February to the middle of March when we were scheduled to go back home last year in 2020. And
you basically have been in Saskatoon since that first trip, yes?
Basically. So after those 3 weeks, I had a flight home. I, of course, left my husband and my 2 kids. And so I went home after those 3 weeks, but I knew that my work was in Saskatoon. I couldn't do any work at the time at Dell. Dell had shut down all their research because of pandemic protocols. And I just thought, how could this is my job. This is what I trained to do. And Vito was open because they had to be, and this was their job too. So as soon as I got back to Halifax, I turned right around and came back to Saskatoon, and I haven't left since. So it's been quite a journey. I lived in a hotel while working on vaccine development and trying to understand how this virus is causing people to get so sick and die. So I lived in a hotel from basically February until September last year.
So lots of mints on pillows.
Yeah. No, actually with the COVID protocol, don't come in and clean your room. I had to clean my own room.
The best thing about going to a hotel is not having to take care of yourself, and yet there you were. The documentary is framed as the great vaccine race, though it's not really a competitive race against other virologists or vaccinologists. I got the sense there was quite a bit of competition. Everyone's in it for the same reason, but all racing towards a vaccine. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so sometimes I have trouble with when people talk about vaccines being a race, but the reason why I did the work that I did and do the work that I do is to save people. So if it's a race against the virus and trying to save lives.
Yeah, that's what. And so, but how does you mentioned the virus email list that a lot of people in your profession are on. How else does the cooperation work during the development?
So interestingly, as soon as I think we really recognized as a research community that, and I'm talking about people who had been doing emerging virus research for quite a while in vaccine development. Once that was really cemented that this is a significant problem, the World Health Organization set up working groups of specialized researchers that could focus on what is the epidemiology of COVID-19, what's going on with the development of preclinical testing of vaccines, what's the development of actual vaccines. So the WHO set up these working groups, and although there were working groups previously for other vaccines and other diseases, this is probably the largest effort ever, in which I'm part of 2 of the working groups. And we've been meeting since that probably mid-February 2020, and we meet still to today, where researchers around the world give updates of what they're working on, and we can communicate so we're not doubling efforts. This is really a global goal to produce quality vaccines and stop the transmission of SARS-CoV-2 around the world.
Now, the documentary that's airing tonight, 9 p.m. on CBC, on the nature of things, it features a couple of teams from around the world. There were obviously more teams, but they picked a few and followed them through the development. I wanted to ask about the husband and wife team from BioNTech, Shaheen and Teresi. How do you think they'll go down in history? Because it really feels like they were responsible for an incredible breakthrough that going forward is going to be invaluable to society and to creating vaccines.
Mm-hmm. So I haven't seen the documentary yet,
okay.
So I don't know what. I'm not allowed to see it before everyone else, only the press. So I'm not sure what components are in there, but I do think definitely the researchers that were involved in mRNA vaccine technology, and there's several, including them, that mRNA vaccine technology really began in the 70s, 80s, started getting traction into the 90s and 2000s, that the technology really wasn't able to be developed without a lot of different input from many different researchers. Mm-hmm. Definitely what they've put together in Germany has been a huge stepping stone, I think, for Pfizer's vaccine, obviously, and then also for how we can deliver quality and effective vaccines to people. So what I'm really hoping from this is that their technology will be able to branch out to not just COVID-19, but other infectious diseases, as well as hopefully diseases that are non-infectious, such as cancer.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm very curious about. Are you okay to hang around? I'm just going to take a quick break,
sure.
and I have a number of questions to still ask you. So hold tight.
Sure, no problem.
This is the final call. Kevin, I'm thinking about adding physical gold to my wealth strategy.
Well, I wouldn't recommend it. It's volatile and it doesn't pay a dividend.
Really, Kevin? Because I've researched gold, and it actually has averaged over 10% per year since 2002. That's a lot more return than I'm getting with you.
But you're going to pay storage fees. And how are you going to sell it?
Actually, it's easy to store, and it costs less than your yearly management fee. And I found out through Delta Harbor Assets that buying and selling happens on a phone call. Plus, I can take it home if I want to.
Have you ever thought about owning physical gold or silver and been told it's a bad idea? Thank goodness for Delta Harbor Assets. Delta Harbor will put you first. With Delta Harbor Assets, you can discover how owning physical gold and silver could protect your financial future and cost your pocket less. Go to deltaharbor.com, where it's all about you. That's Harbor with a U, because it's all about you.
Sorry, Kevin, but I want to do things my way. I'm heading to Delta Harbor.
Attention hockey fans! The Mississauga Steelheads are back, and with another big deal. Purchase a 10-ticket flex pack in November and receive a free Steelheads long sleeve shirt. Flex pack ticket holders can choose which games to attend while reserving specific seats at no additional cost. Now that's what I call a deal. For more information, visit MississaugaSteelheads.com or contact the Steelheads representative at info@MississaugaSteelheads.com.
There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbor, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference.
No radio? No problem. Stream us live on Sauga960am.ca.
Talk that rocks. It's Josh Holiday Live. Need to be heard? Tell your phone to call 647-6-YO-JOSH.
We are here. We are speaking with Dr. Alison Cullivan, a virologist and vaccinologist who is featured in the Nature of Things documentary, I'm going to get the title wrong, Inside the Great Vaccine Race, which follows a couple of different teams from around the world as they race against COVID-19 and try and come up with a vaccine to stop the spread. She is based in Saskatoon now, and I'm wondering if you've thought about, or if you've mapped out where we'd be right now if we were still looking for a viable vaccine.
Oh dear. I think that would be a very grave situation. So I think that I haven't quite had time to process everything that's happened, but we've learned a lot, definitely, on how this virus transmits and how to stop transmission, even if we don't have any other countermeasures other than those specifically targeting behavior. So I think we'd be capable of reducing our caseloads and the amount of virus and viral burden within our communities, keeping people safe, but that would come at a huge cost to, I think, our mental health, our growth of our children, as well as, our economy. So our ability to have vaccines right now has really touched all parts of our lives. Saying that, we still have work to do in reducing the transmission of the virus so that we can totally get back to our normal life. But yeah, it's been a huge impact having vaccines.
And I suppose there's a bit of irony in the fact that one of the top Canadian virus labs is in Saskatchewan, which is one of the worst provinces. I guess there's a race between Ontario, Alberta, and Saskatchewan to handle the outbreak the worst. What's it like living in Saskatchewan, knowing that they're doing a lot of things wrong?
Oh, yeah. So I have to say, when the pandemic started, I felt that Saskatchewan made a lot of really great decisions. We had our caseload quite low, and even going into the summer, we had single-digit cases per day. And once we decided to take off the masks and open up completely, that's when the caseloads skyrocketed to above anything that we had ever seen. So I think it's really disheartening to see going from doing so well and keeping people protected to losing several hundred people over the last couple of months. But the other thing it really shows is how important having multiple countermeasures are. And I think eventually we will be able to get to a point where we don't need to have masks and social distancing. But that's only going to come when we're able to completely or have a very, very low level of virus within the community. And we weren't there yet. So it's a great example of what we can't do before the time is right.
Yeah, it feels like everyone who's in such a rush to get back to normal are ironically the ones who are slowing everything from getting back to normal. It's kind of like that delayed gratification. Just wait a little bit longer and you'll be able to do even more than you are now. So,
yep.
So what's the current status of the vaccine that you were working on?
So I had been working on several vaccines, and not directly with the Vito vaccine. So although I've supported the development of the Vito vaccine in many ways, they're right now still in phase 1 clinical trials and reviewing the data, hoping to move to phase 2 and eventually phase 3. I can't report any other details about that because technically it's not my project.
Sure. One of the people featured in the documentary is an English gentleman who is not just working on a vaccine for COVID-19, but for a variety of COVID viruses. And I'm just wondering if you know anything more about his progress in that area.
Yeah, I definitely don't at this point. I think, though, looking at different coronaviruses that can cause up to 30% of our the seasonal burden of our cold and flu season, it would be really important, an important advancement, because these viruses have been around since the 60s, and these specific coronaviruses I'm talking about. And I think this could really impact how we function in our communities.
What's next on your plate going forward?
So it's a good question. Right now, I guess the place that I came from was, as I mentioned, working on SARS-1 and then moving to really trying to understand influenza viruses, both the seasonal influenza viruses that cause a huge burden to our healthcare system each year, where it's estimated we lose about 3,000 people in Canada per year because of influenza virus infections. And then at the same time, trying to understand what's going to be the next pandemic influenza virus. So with this as being my general problem, I've been really interested in the past 10 years in the development of a vaccine that will protect against several different influenza viruses at the same time. So we call this either the next generation of influenza vaccines or universal vaccines. And as soon as SARS-CoV-2 emerged, that February 2020, I saw a lot of parallels between what was going on with influenza and now our coronavirus, this new coronavirus, as we had several other very serious and severe coronaviruses causing disease and death in people in the last 10 years or 20 years, and that being SARS-1 and MERS, and also the seasonal coronaviruses. So I thought, can I use the technology and the tools that I've developed for understanding universal influenza vaccines to coronavirus vaccines? That's where my research is heading today, with the hopes that we will be able to get rid of SARS-CoV-2, but also prevent seasonal coronavirus infections. And then I think this strategy will be better and more beneficial for the low and middle income countries that are dealing right now with even getting a single dose of COVID-19 vaccines into the arms of their people. And if we consider that we might need an update to these vaccines because of the new variants, a universal vaccine might provide a way that they're more easily able to vaccinate their populations instead of having to continually rely on this updated vaccine. So that's where my research is mostly heading right now. But another thing that I'm really concerned about and interested in hopefully trying to prevent is the effects of long COVID. We know that long COVID can affect any age group, different sexes, and that basically what it is that symptoms of COVID-19 are prolonged after infection, and this can occur weeks, months, to even a year later, and where these symptoms can be debilitating. So I'm interested, will vaccination prevent these symptoms of long COVID? And are there ways that we could treat people who've already been infected and have been significantly impacted by this disease?
As someone who's spent much of their life working on creating vaccines, how frustrating is the anti-vax movement?
Yeah, so it's another good question. And I really feel right now during the pandemic that our world has changed so much in the past less than 2 years. Nobody in recent memory, not since the 1918 influenza pandemic, have we been hit in our communities and throughout society the same, where we had to have complete shutdowns. So at this point, and with having to deal with how SARS-CoV-2 has affected everyone, affected their mental health, having to have communities shut down, and then what seems like the development of a very fast vaccine for this new virus, I can understand how this could be quite confusing to people. So I think, we really have to separate what people have, the questions that they have about COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 vaccines with people who are strongly against all vaccines in general. And so I'm not always frustrated. I actually want to be here to help answer questions and share the knowledge that I have. I've been working on coronaviruses since SARS-1 in 2003, where I even helped evaluate different SARS-1 vaccines. So when we developed a COVID-19 vaccine, it actually didn't come out of nowhere. SARS-1 and SARS-2 are quite similar in their target spike protein. And so we were easily able to take the technologies that we had and the information about coronaviruses that we knew from these previous viruses and quickly develop a vaccine, not coming out of the air and not based on kind of fast tracking things.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely history. And I think sometimes I'm guilty of not making the distinction between vaccine hesitant and anti-vaxxers. I get very frustrated with people who are anti-vax. But last week I had a caller and he was complaining a little bit that I was tarring everyone who is vaccine hesitant as dumb. Just the people who are virulently anti-vax are the ones who are, in my opinion, not so bright, or they're suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect, where they just don't realize that they don't know enough about the vaccines to speak in an intelligent manner. But in this case, this gentleman he'd had his first shot of the vaccine, and he had kind of picked a number of statistics. I feel a little bit like he was handpicking different statistics to match his narrative. But I sent the emails to you just to ask the expert in terms of his concerns. He was talking about the risk for him and his age group of getting myocarditis. But what would you say to that gentleman?
Yeah, and I think, it's a completely legitimate question. Health Canada, and this is really important, Health Canada has established a monitoring system. They have this prior to vaccines are approved, and they monitor how vaccines and the side effects of vaccines continually as long as a vaccine is in use in Canada. So they've set up this monitoring system called Adverse Events Following Immunization of COVID-19 Vaccines. And you can see all the data on the Health Canada website, where they've identified safety signals from that may have occurred, or you can even see all the numbers of adverse events that have occurred after immunization. And before I explain this, I think it's really important to identify and that we talk about that any adverse event that occurs after immunization is going to be recorded. And this is if it's associated with the vaccination event or not. So, I could say, get a vaccine, walk out of my pharmacy, trip over a huge rock and break my leg, and this might end up in an adverse event tally. And it's important that all these events are looked at, because then it goes and there's a deep review. Was this actually connected to the vaccine event? And we could say to ourselves, well, was I lightheaded? Is that why? And we need to be aware of this. Or was this just very random and had absolutely nothing to do with getting the vaccine? So all of these events are tallied up and you can see it on the website. And Health Canada's come up with 3 safety signals. And one of those is being that a safety signal has come up where the incidence of myocarditis and pericarditis, which is basically inflammation in the heart or inflammation around the heart, occurs above what we would normally see in the normal population that hasn't been vaccinated. So Health Canada's identified this. So I think it's important that if people have questions about it, they ask. But after investigation, what's been shown is that the majority of these cases that are occurring mostly in younger men and after their second dose are resolved to that the person is back to normal functioning and that they have no long-term effects from this condition or the vaccination event itself. And interestingly, what's also important with this condition is that myocarditis and pericarditis commonly occur after viral infection. And if we look at the stats and how often this occurs after being infected with SARS-CoV-2 in younger males, you have a 6 times greater chance of getting myocarditis or pericarditis after being infected with SARS-CoV-2 and having COVID-19 than you do from getting the COVID-19 vaccine. And because we really aren't able to regulate how severe your infection is going to be, this could lead to prolonged symptoms, something more severe in your heart, possibly long COVID, which we know affects the heart as well as several other organs, including the brain. So I think when you look at the risk-benefit analysis and what Health Canada has done is basically identified this as a safety signal, but one that does not cause any severe consequences, and have continued to use the vaccine because it prevents a greater disease.
So bottom line, get that shot. is the message. I just want to say I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to have a chat and clear up some misconceptions about the COVID-19 vaccines, and just to fill us in on the documentary that's airing as well. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's Dr. Alison Kelvin. She is featured on a documentary called Inside the Great Vaccine Race. Airs on CBC at 9 p.m. as part of the season premiere of The Nature of Things. And it re-airs a couple of times over the weekend on CBC, and you can probably watch it anytime using the CBC app as CBC Gem. Not much time left in the show, so if you want to get a call in, now is the time. 647-6-YO-JOSH. You can call and spout about anything. If you want to talk about the vaccine, you can do that, or if you have a pet peeve that's bothering you, you can do that too. It's nice to hear from someone who is directly involved in the world of vaccines, as opposed to crazy conspiracy theorists who are anti-vaccine or so-called alternative scientists. And it's nice to have factual, scientific, informational news on the vaccines. So there you go. My gift to you. Go get if you haven't got your shot yet, go and get it so we can all get back to normal. The irony of this is that it's the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers who are slowing the recovery down, making everyone else wait. As I've said in the past, you can use this show as your megaphone as a listener. If you have something that bugs you, could be just a minor pet peeve, and you might complain to your wife or to the air, or just walk along the street and go, that son of a god. If you want, you can always call here and we will hear your beef, your complaint, and we will amplify it to the huge audience that Sauga 960 hits. News Talk, Sauga 960. We will amplify you. For example, during the pandemic, I've noticed a trend that it was around before the pandemic, but now it's even worse. People who use their feet to press buttons, whether it's the button to cross the road, the button to open the door, using your foot on the toilet. Just if you need to use something other than your hand, even though we now know that COVID is an airborne virus and is extremely, extremely unlikely to be transmitted through physical contact or surface transmission. It's airborne. You don't have to use your dirt-covered, feces-covered shoes to press buttons to cross at the crosswalk or to open doors using the handicap button. You don't have to use your hands if you don't want to. You can use your elbow. Very easy to use instead of your foot. Back of your wrist is handy. If you have beefs, you can always call 6476-YO-JOSH. That's our telephone number for the show. And the great thing about it is that even after the show goes off air in a couple of minutes, the phone line is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can call it up, leave a message about anything you want to talk about. If you have a topic you want to talk about, if you have a beef you want to talk about, if you heard the show and you want to complain, anything you want, you can go to 6476-YO-JOSH and leave a recording, and there's a good chance we will play it. If you go to the website, sauga960am.ca, under our show, you can find all my social links, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find links for the podcast, and the phone number's there, my email's there. So communication is the name of the game, and I'm here for it. I want this to be an interactive show, a place where we can have conversations. As for today's show, it's rapidly winding down, and again, I want to thank Dr. Allison Kelvin for giving us some valuable information on vaccines. Some positive, factual information. No conspiracy theories here, just real info. All right, you have yourself a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon.
Turn on the lights, open the shades.
The show's over, but the conversation continues. On Twitter at Josh Holiday, on the web at joshholidaylive.com, and hear missed episodes on your favorite podcatcher. Talk that rocks. Josh Holiday Live.